Uncle Scrooge, the meanest and stingiest duck in the world, was staying with his nephew, Donald Duck. It wasn't because he particularly enjoyed his nephew's company, oh no, but because it was the best way to save money. Why spend a single dime on heating when Donald had a perfectly good fireplace? Why buy expensive groceries when Donald had a full pantry? Scrooge prided himself on his ability to pinch every last penny, and he saw no shame in making himself as comfortable as possible at someone else's expense. Hey, Scrooge chuckled to himself as he lounged in front of Donald's fireplace, his webbed feet stretched out toward the warmth. That's the way to save money. No heating bills, no grocery bills, just good old-fashioned economy. Donald's three nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, were less than thrilled about their great-uncle's visit. In fact, they wished he would just go home already. He's always grumbling and scolding us, Huey whispered one night as they lay awake in their beds. And he never lets us have any fun, Dewey added. He's even stingier than usual, Louie huffed. And that's saying something. Their uncle's presence turned their normally cheerful home into a place of grumbling, penny pinching, and endless complaints. Scrooge insisted they not use too much wood for the fire, scolded them for playing too loudly, and even rationed the food, claiming they all ate too much. The boys had had enough. Then, early one chilly morning, before the sun had even fully risen, Uncle Scrooge barged into their bedroom and yanked their blankets away. Up, he barked. You young scallywags are too soft. Back in my day, we started the morning with a good, brisk dip in the lake. Bill character, it did. The three nephews groaned and shivered. The room was already cold enough, and the thought of plunging into the freezing lake made them pull their pajama collars up to their beaks. Swimming in this weather, Dewey exclaimed, wrapping his wings around himself. We bet you wouldn't do it, Huey challenged, rubbing his sleepy eyes. Uncle Scrooge's eyes gleamed at the challenge. Ha! 5 pence each says I will, he cackled. Donald, who had just stumbled into the room in his nightcap and robe, overheard the conversation and smirked. He knew his Uncle Scrooge never turned down an opportunity to make money, but he also hated parting with it. Make it £5, Uncle, Donald said with a sly grin. And if you change your mind, you pay US £5 each. Scrooge narrowed his eyes, considering the offer. £5 was a hefty sum, but what was a little chilly swim compared to such easy earnings? Splendid, he agreed, rubbing his hands together. I don't mind a brisk dip for £5. Donald's grin widened. Then let's go. The whole group, Donald, the triplets, and Uncle Scrooge bundled up and made their way down to the lake. The air was crisp and biting, their breath turning into puffs of mist as they walked. A strong wind blew through the bare trees, and the grass crunched with frost under their feet. As they reached the lake, Scrooge marched forward confidently, puffing out his chest. But the moment he reached the shore, his confidence wavered. The lake was frozen solid. A thick sheet of ice stretched across the water, glistening in the early morning light. Donald and the boys grinned at each other just as they had guessed. Scrooge's beak fell open in shock. He tapped a foot against the surface, but the ice was rock hard. There was no way he could take a dip. "Well, Uncle," Donald said, smirking, "I guess you owe us some money." Scrooge's face turned red. "Bah, this isn't fair. No one told me the lake was frozen." "You didn't ask," Huey said cheerfully. "A bait's a bet," Dewey added, "and you can still dip just into your wallet instead." Louie grinned. Scrooge grumbled and muttered under his breath, but he knew there was no way out of it. With great reluctance, he pulled out his battered old wallet and counted out 15 pounds. One by one, he handed the crisp bills to the boys and Donald. "There," he huffed. "Now I shan't stay with you any longer." Donald and the boys watched as Scrooge stormed off, mumbling about wasted money and frozen lakes. As soon as he was out of sight, they burst into laughter. "That was the easiest 15 pounds we've ever made." Louie chuckled. "Yeah, and we didn't even have to get wet." Dewey added. Donald wiped a tear of laughter from his eye. "You boys sure do take after me." But Scrooge wasn't about to let the matter rest. As he trudged back to Donald's house, an idea formed in his mind. Maybe he had lost this round, but he wasn't going to be outsmarted by his nephew and those mischievous boys. The next morning, Donald and the boys were still sleeping soundly when the sound of hammering and sawing woke them up. "What in the world?" Donald muttered, rubbing his eyes. The four of them hurried outside to find Scrooge standing at the now frozen lake. He had built a small wooden platform over the water, and hanging from it was a bucket tied to a rope. Scrooge grinned triumphantly. "Since I lost yesterday's bet, I've come up with a way to make my money back." Donald crossed his arms. "Oh yeah, and how's that?" "I've started a business," Scrooge announced. "For just £1, anyone can take a traditional Scottish ice water dip. It's invigorating, it's refreshing, and it builds character." The boys exchanged glances. "You expect people to pay to jump into freezing water?" Huey asked. "Of course," Scrooge said proudly. "People pay for all sorts of crazy things these days, saunas, cold baths, and exercise clubs. Why not this?" As if on cue, a few curious townsfolk gathered around. "A proper ice water dip," a hefty dog-faced man mused. "I've heard they do this in Finland. It's good for circulation." "I'll try it," another duck chimed in, handing Scrooge a pound. Scrooge gleefully took the money and helped the customer into the bucket. With a quick tug on the rope, the bucket splashed into the freezing water. The duck came up gasping and shivering but grinning. "Wow, that woke me up," he exclaimed, shaking the water from his feathers. "I think I'll come back tomorrow." Scrooge's eyes sparkled. "Tell your friends. The more, the merrier, and no refunds." Donald and the boys gawked. Somehow, Scrooge had turned his loss into a business opportunity. "Unbelievable," Donald muttered. "Guess he really is the world's shrewdest duck," Louie admitted. Scrooge cackled as more customers lined up, coins jingling in his hands. "Ha, ha, that's the way to make money."